Welcome everyone to the first formal session of ETMOOC 2. Last week we had our introduction with Alec. If you missed that, the recording's online. Highly recommend you go back, but if you haven't watched it yet, you don't need that for tonight's episode. Each session like this will be standalone but integrated into an entire course. Having said that, let's just jump right into it. Let's do a little storytelling here, set the tenor for the topic tonight, which of course is ChatGPT and lifelong learning. People are acting as if we're in the midst of a revolution. And I got to say, many of us feel as if we've been there, done that. For me, been there, done that was about 3 or 4 years ago, sitting at a conference with friends, trainers from all over the world. A bunch of us were at a table out in San Diego looking out over the bay. It was a gorgeous evening. The agenda was meant to be just catch up with each other because we hadn't seen each other in a year or so. Halfway through the meal, somebody that I really know, love, and respect said, oh, by the way, I'm working on a project and it's going to involve artificial intelligence. We're going, okay. She says, yeah, this big company is global, and we have this program that we've designed that is so good that we think it's going to replace all the instructional designers in this massive company all over the world by the end of the year. My face started to turn ashen. My jaw started to drop. And if I was capable of quivering and getting tears, it was like, I'm thinking about all the instructional designers I knew and know. I'm thinking how that's their livelihood. And I'm sitting across from somebody I know and trust intimately who's telling me their jobs are about to disappear because somebody's created an artificial intelligence platform or program capable of doing their work at the drop of a hat. I came back to San Francisco, started talking to people I knew saying, this is massive. We have to be asking ourselves 2 questions. First of all, what are the instructional designers going to do? And second thing is, companies that do value their employees, what are they going to do to bring people's skills up? Fortunately, it was a false alarm. They over-anticipated what that thing could do. And it seemed like we could all start to breathe again there for a couple of years, thinking, nobody's going to take over the instructional design. And then about 5 or 6 months ago, this thing came along, ChatGPT. And I'm kind of hearing it out of the back of one of my ears going, that sounds interesting. This feels a little bit familiar. And then I start hearing colleagues saying, you should go in there. If you put in the right terms, it can design a lesson for you. I'm going, okay. And then I started playing with it with Alec and Susan and others here in what has been the ETMOOC community for more than 10 years. And we're all watching us put prompts in saying, could you design a module for me or a lesson that would do this? And the thing is banging it out and our eyes are getting big. Fortunately, now we've had 3 or 4 years to think, so what does that mean in terms of our training? And obviously, one of the many things we're thinking about is there is a new skill that we all have to be paying attention to. You need to know how to ask the right question to get the right stuff out of ChatGPT. You miss it by a few words and what you end up with is garbage. We also have to remember the truism that with artificial intelligence, as much as it feels like a real person, and that's delightful, it's programming, folks. And programming isn't going to be the same as a human being. But again, it's sort of irrelevant when you get down to the work we do. More and more is being done at some level by equipment. And it raises an important thing that I think will be a theme flowing through our conversation this evening, which is let us stop asking the wrong question, which is, oh my God, ChatGPT makes it possible for students to pump out a newspaper, a term paper. How are we going to stop cheating? I mean, that's the small part of it. The real big part is ChatGPT is a tool that will help us with our writing, help us with our lesson planning, help us with many other aspects of education. And we will use that inside and outside of formal learning spaces. So the question is, if that's going to be a tool for us, how do we re-gear our education so that that's what we're working toward instead of getting into the traditional question of how do we stop cheating? If we make the massive shift that something like this suggests to us, we stop worrying about cheating and we start redefining what we're trying to do. And that goes back to encouraging people to learn because they want to learn and because they need these skills in our workplace and make ourselves so essential in the process that the combination of what machinery does for us, what humans do, reaches that magic moment that was mentioned in a fabulous book a few years ago, Human plus Machine, Reimagining Work in the Age of AI. The point there is let the machines do what they do well, let people do what they do well. And when you find that intersection, which is magic, then we are headed in the direction of something really exciting and really productive if we are making the effort to bring people along with us instead of saying, sorry, folks, your job's gone, tough luck, better luck next time with the new technology. Having set that broad-based thing of AI and talking about ChatGPT, let me turn this over to Lisa, who, if she goes with what we had talked about yesterday, is going to tell you about a meeting she was just in a few hours ago that takes us further into this topic. So Lisa, run with it, please.
Yeah, and it's a great piggyback on what you just said. So I'm a K-12 director of instructional technology. And in January, one of the young teachers in the school, he brilliant, teaches history. And he came running into me. He said, Lisa, I have to show you something. I have to show you something, because he saw the ChatGPT. I had already been reading up on it. My husband's a software engineer and has already been using it for writing code and things like that. So, and he was all worried about it. What am I going to do? What am I going to do? So fast forward today, and he's since been looking into it a lot since January. So I did a professional development today on AI and ChatGPT to all the educators at our school. I would say 85% who have never even tried ChatGPT. I would say 30% didn't even know what it was, which I like didn't understand how they could not know what that is, but okay. And we started the discussion, and the dean of discipline, the first thing he said, well, Lisa, the onus is going to be on you to decide what to do, you know, when these students start using this and they start trying to find answers, and, you know, they're not writing the papers anymore. I said, wait a minute. First of all, this is why we're all here together. We're all here together to discuss, you know, how we're going to use it, how we're going to use it to enhance our teaching. And instead of looking at it through a negative lens, or saying the word cheating, we're looking at it at a positive lens. Well, that same young teacher started giving examples. He didn't use this word, but in the end, and I'll tell you what his examples are, he is using ChatGPT as his collaborator. How is he using it as a collaborator? Well, he he wrote a prompt for the ChatGPT to grade a series of essays that his students had written on the Punic Wars. And he asked it to, you know, give him the strengths, the weaknesses, look at organization, look at different key points. And it came back with what he thought was an A, you know, one of the better essays, put it this way. And it gave it a 75%. But then it listed, well, this is why this gets the 75%. On organization, the student could have done blah, 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 blah. And on citing the Punic War, well, they made a mistake on this area. So what he could do then with his machine collaborator was saying, oh, thanks. Now I can take what the feedback that you just gave me. I'm not going to give that feedback directly to the student, but I'm going to use that feedback combined with my feedback to have this student rewrite the paper and make it better than what it's been. He also pointed out that having the student do the research with the ChatGPT, it would be like you're working in a group, you're working in a collaborative group, except for that other student, it's not a student sitting next to you who said, well, this is what I researched and I found. It's the ChatGPT. And then you're going to say, well, this is what I found on my side. And so you're going to pick apart parts of those responses that ChatGPT gave you, and you're going to combine that with those responses that you have to make, you know, a good paper to turn into your history teacher. So this started inciting people to think of different ways. Oh, well, you know, we want to start a club. We're not sure how to start a club. So they put in, how do I start a green club? And it gave all, you know, well, first you need to find a mentor, you know, you need a faculty advisor, and it went through all the steps. Now, does the average everyday faculty or teacher in a K-12 school know these steps about making a club? Yeah, but does the average student know that when you make a club, you need to find an advisor, you need to write a mission statement and all that? So again, it's a collaborator for the student. It's saying, oh, okay, you want to start a club? Here's some advice for you of what to do. So instead of looking at it through a negative lens, we turned the whole thing around and we talked about all the different positive ways that it can support and help students in their day-to-day learning.
Wonderful. Thanks, Lisa. Let's kick it over to Maurice, and here's another perspective on what we're seeing with ChatGPT, and then we're going to get our conversation going with all of you. Maurice?
Thank you. So I have a slightly different perspective with ChatGPT. I facilitate workshops, etc. And for a workshop that I have coming up, we ask for biographies. Let's do a biography. All right, give your biography, etc. Your biographies are hard to write because you're writing about yourself, and no one likes to tout their own work. No one likes to toot their own horn. Well, most people don't like to toot their own horn. I have had people who said, I just used ChatGPT to write my biography. I thought, well, that's interesting. Let me see what it does. So last night, I put in a prompt for myself and some basic information about myself, and it wrote I did it 6 times. It wrote 6 different biographies for me. So with ChatGPT, what I've noticed, working with it and other people, is that you kind of have to have some sort of human agency, because it's not necessarily accurate. Because it's pulling all this data from everywhere, it's giving you what it thinks you want. So it gave me some really good ideas for my biography that I'm totally using, but it didn't have where I was born, went to the wrong school 3 different times. I went to about 12 different schools in 6 different generations of the thing. So at this point, ChatGPT is great for giving you ideas, helping you think about things. There's no citations. So you can't say, well, where did you get this data? I have no idea where you got it. I'd like to know where you got this data. And I'll talk a little bit more about that later. It's an incredible tool to start. Think of it as, I don't know, the 2020s Wikipedia. You know, Wikipedia is a tool. Use it as a tool. It is not the be all and end all of everything. It is not the sky is falling. I've been doing this long enough in technology and technology training to remember when CD-ROM is going to be the end of the library. Well, you can fit everything on a CD-ROM. Why would you need a library? I don't know. Why would you need books? I don't know. Why would you need this? I don't know. Or when the internet was going to put every single library out of business, how's that going? Are we out of business? No, but it's a tool. And that's what it is. We have to think about it, as Lisa and Paul are saying, really learn to examine it, how to use it. And more importantly, is this an opportunity to really look at the entire education system and to see what works, what doesn't work? Is this our chance to throw it all up against the wall, see what works, and chuck what doesn't?
Thank you. Circling back to what you were talking about there, I've seen that same thing when I've done searches. Just changing a few words will hone things in. So that skill I keep talking about in terms of developing really good prompts to get what you need is an essential part of doing this. Also, as both Lisa and Maurice have talked about, and Alec, I think, alluded to this last week, you really do have to sort of question some of the information there. I use it as a starting point, and that's where I see a lot of the brightest people I'm working around doing the same thing. I was at a journalism conference for collegiate media students and their advisors a month ago. One paper at the college level is actually using ChatGPT for some amazing things. It's programmed to check for AP, Associated Press style, and it does that very well. So the students can hand it over to them. In some of their basic research for stories, they can use that. The point they made explicitly, and I think it's great advice for all of us, is use it as a tool, but as Maurice said, check it. That's your starting point. When I, as a sample or an example of how it works, put in a question trying to prompt it for 5 recent articles that we should be reading if we want to know about ChatGPT and education, it immediately pumped out a very impressive list of 5 articles. I did what anybody would do at that point and went looking for the articles to see how good they were. 1 out of the 5 was findable through Google. I don't know if they were hidden in databases or if there was incorrect information. So that
They
is
didn't
what
exist, Paul. They didn't exist. They didn't exist.
Yeah,
That's the problem.
It can't cite sources because it doesn't go to the internet. It just gives you what it's learned from the different questions and the different input that's been given to it. So if
So
it
that-
had somebody else give it that source, it'll give you that source back. But it
Which is
doesn't go back out to
hell
the
of an
internet
echo
to
chamber.
find sources.
So
It
the bad
becomes
news
an
was,
echo chamber.
the bad news was I got a list that 1 out of the 5 I could immediately find. The good news was putting those titles in title by title into Google, I got things that were very close. And so I ultimately ended up with the 5 article list I wanted, but it wasn't exactly what ChatGPT gave me. If we use it that way, it is such a fantastic time-saving tool. As Lisa and Maurice just pointed out, lots of questions in there. So let's get into a discussion here. Lisa, why don't you go ahead with the first prompt? What we're going to do for the rest of the session tonight is in about 12 to 13-minute increments, tackle a question as a group, see where we're at, and then toward the end, we'll do a quick summary of it. So Lisa, why don't you run with the first prompt?
Oh, I don't have the first prompt up. Okay, identify the 3 ways. Is that the one? Okay.
We were going to talk about the positive things that people are experiencing with ChatGPT.
Yeah, positive. Okay, so let's just throw some personal things out here. Positive. My husband and I are going on a trip to Greece this summer. So we just put some ideas that we had, and ChatGPT made us an itinerary. It also gave us some places that you normally wouldn't have wanted to visit, that it said, oh, you should go here and here, that we could research. Again, we don't know if it's going to be right or wrong, but it gave us a starting point to research. And then I just want to tell you one funny thing. At my work, we did a pool for the Final Four. We did for the basketball, okay, for March Madness. And I put my dollar in or whatever. So I decided, well, I'm going to use ChatGPT. Now this is, we did this, when did we do this? Like February. So at that point, I didn't realize, my husband laughed at me when I told him that, because he said, it only goes up to 2021. I said, oh, okay. I came in 3rd in the pool. It wasn't too bad, but that's because I teach at FAU, and I'm also a graduate of FAU. So I was heavy on FAU. And as you know, if you watch basketball, they went pretty much to the end. But I mean, the uses are limitless. There's, and the example of we're redesigning the tech lab at school. So I said, make me a list of different resources, different things that I would need for a new tech lab for a K-12 school. It named all sorts of different robotics kits and things like that, gave me valid websites. So it does have a lot of positive.
Tell other people off that prompt that Lisa and I just gave you, what are you seeing out there that's positive? You can either unmute yourself so we can hear it, or you can put it into the chat, and 3 of us will try to read as many of those as we can as we're seeing them come in. Yeah, the positive things you're seeing from ChatGPT. I see Shabnam, I'm sorry if I'm saying that wrong. Shay, yes, please, go ahead.
Okay, you can call me Shay. Yes, that's
Shay, thank you so
better.
much.
So we do a lot of work with sustainability education, and I'm finding very useful to ask ChatGPT the positive and the negative of any question to get a more complete and comprehensive answer set. So very simple prompt was, I started with, why should we do sustainability? And then I asked it, why should we not do sustainability? And when you laid the 2 answers over each other, the completeness, the comprehensiveness of the response, there were perspectives that I would have never considered just going down the route of why is sustainability good. So that's my new thing. I ask why not about every single thing.
A very funny one that I mentioned before the recording started earlier this evening. It was on a ChatGPT group that is on Facebook. Somebody asked the question, can you tell me 10 great places I can go to get pirated films? And he got the standard answer, I'm an artificial intelligence, I can't give you illegal information. The person said, so I swapped out the question. What 10 sites should I avoid because they do pirated videos? And there was a list he wanted. It's all in the question. Anyone else? Seen a couple things.
I use it for rewriting content. So like emails, articles, things like that. I'll write them, and I can write them quite quickly with just kind of the facts. And then I put it into ChatGPT and I say, rewrite this as an email in a formal voice, or rewrite this as a newsletter article. And it does a really good job. I just do a quick edit on it, and it's better than I'd do myself.
Wonderful. I see something paralleling that in the chat here from Barb Potter. I'm using it to generate writing prompts and content ideas, and for my job search interviews, writing cover and thank you letters. I'm hearing a lot of people do that these days. Alex got a note in the chat. If anyone wants to try out Agent GPT, you go to agentgpt.reworked with it's REWORKD without the E in there .ai.
I just wanted to talk about that real quickly.
Please.
So that's an example of an AI agent. So you give it a larger scale problem. So I just put an example. I put name, Greek vacation, and then the goal was create a dream trip itinerary for Greece. And this is just a limited version of it. You can run it yourself, but it will only do so much because of the data that's gathered by it. But it basically creates a set of prompts, and it executes each one of those prompts for this bigger problem. So if it was like you want to create a new business it'll do all of the different steps for you and execute them. And so this goes beyond single queries, but it's actually moving towards this idea where it becomes your project manager in many ways. So it's worth tinkering around with for sure. Oh, everyone's playing.
So I'm sure,
used,
yeah, go.
I used it this Monday. It's National Volunteer Week, and I said, well, why don't I try to see what kind of an introduction I can get off of ChatGPT for a blog article I was going to write. So I put the prompt in, and it came back pretty good. So if you went to my blog, the first 4 or 5 paragraphs mostly are what I got from the ChatGPT. And then I just edited it a little bit to add links and a few other things. So since I write maybe 2 or 3 articles a week, mostly focused on the same thing for last 15 years, finding some prompts that refresh or freshen up how I might present information, that looks like a pretty useful tool. And I haven't used it very often, but that's just a this week example.
I love the comment Maurice made in chat here. It's a writing partner that doesn't sleep.
Well, I was just going to say that about the writing partner. So we've all given all these great examples, and I know that we've all used it that way, and that's great. Is anybody here in like the math or science field, and have you used ChatGPT, or have you tried it with anything mathematical? Because I had math teachers asking me, one math teacher who wanted to rewrite a test and give it, some prompts and see how it did that way. No.
I do have examples, and I'm going to throw them in the chat as prompts. A few that I've tried, and I showed this with a bunch of deans at a university, and the science dean. I wanted to get his input on it, and he said this is actually a very good answer on some of the ones I tried. So math and science, I think, again, this is a language model, so it's not necessarily doing the math, and it's not a scientist in that sense. But it does a lot of word problems quite well, and it does some mathematics, and of course there are errors in it as well. But the next step on this is when ChatGPT, when plugins are available to everyone. So one of the plugins is going to be Wolfram Alpha, which is already sort of, some people are testing this already. Linkage to that, like basically, it'll provide ChatGPT with an external database of Wolfram Alpha, which is science and mathematics heavy, and so it'll have access to that knowledge base, but also all of the data that's within that realm as well. So you'll see large improvements there. The other one is Khan Academy's Khanmigo, which will act as an intelligent tutor that doesn't give you the answer, but it'll guide you through the answer like a teacher would. And that, again, because it's tied into the Khan Academy universe, it's going to give you a better use case than, say, just using GPT, because it's based on more of the language model. But So science and math will certainly be enhanced in the years to come.
And I think Shay had your hand up.
A very brief comment, just anecdotally, why wouldn't MapleSim create an API to ChatGPT and make mathematics available to everybody? But Alec, that goes to your point about APIs being available only with time.
So there's two things. So the API would have direct access to what ChatGPT already has. So it's only basically an interface to the current language model. So whatever limitations of data are right now, the limitations wouldn't work with an API. With a plugin, that's basically you're bringing in your data set. And so you're able to explore your data. So if you have a rich mathematical data set, you're basically, it's like a module. You're adding more data to it. So you're using the engine of ChatGPT, like the way that it actually creates language, but you're providing it with this extended data set. So just like, one of the journals, if there was any major journal, if they want to connect that to their data set, which I'm sure they will, then they can use the ChatGPT functionality to this other larger, paywall data set. So that becomes the difference there. So plugins extend and APIs only move into the existing data.
That's super interesting. Tim.
Yeah, so I teach in engineering, not science, what's really correlated to it. And
No, absolutely.
my grad student and I were building a board game collaboratively to teach early year software engineers about project management, teamwork, collaboration, and then basics of software. And we were thinking about this game and coming up with like multiple choice questions. So we used ChatGPT to provide the foundation for those questions. And it worked really well. And we just had to make some minor edits. And then we were like, she's defending or not defending her presentations next week. And we were crafting a questionnaire because we're going to get people to play the game and give us comments. And we were like, well, what kind of questions do we want? We spent about 10 minutes kind of like going back and forth. And then she finally said, why don't we use ChatGPT to come up with some questions for us? And we did. And within 20 minutes, we had, 6 really good questions we're going to ask the participants who are playing the game. So it saved us weeks of time, which was pretty cool.
And it seems to be, that seems to be an overlying message. Everybody's saying that it's saving them so much time. And I think sometimes we're conditioned to think that when we cut down time, we're cutting corners, we're not, being thorough enough. But if it saves time on the menial part, meaning building the quiz or doing some of the research to build the quiz, I think it actually, in the end result might even be better because you're not so fatigued by the menial parts of the task that's out of the way. It's almost like, well, it's a virtual assistant, right? So you have somebody helping you and then you can continue on.
Yeah, she is scared because I keep telling her, let's talk about us using ChatGPT. And she's like, could we? And I'm like, why not? This reminds me of like what Dave Cormier, he had a presentation a while ago about like cheating is learning. He had cheating in quotation marks. And this reminds me of that. Like it's just a tool. And in my class this last semester, I have students writing a blog about the last 2 weeks of video lectures that they've been watching. And one student I noticed wasn't watching the videos, but I asked him like, oh, how did you create your blog? And I guess he was, he read everyone else's blog and learned from them. So I was like, I don't know if I can give you a bad mark because you actually did learn, even though it wasn't the content I provided. So I'm sort of struggling with that in my brain, but I don't know what to do with that yet, but.
Tim, you've given me a good opening here to talk about something that worked really well in the original ETMOOC course. Many of us blogged our experiences. We would read articles and blog about that. Sometimes we would read a colleague's blog through ETMOOC and respond by a link back to that and then say further things. Toward the end of the session tonight, we'll talk about the idea that this is not just once every 2 weeks we get together and have a conversation. If you really want to explore it, we've got a whole thing put up on the session 1 page that gives you some exercises you can do. And I would suggest to people, if blogging is your thing, and if you're inspired by what's going on here, blog it, tweet it out, put it in Discord, put a link to it in Discord so we can find it there and we can react, because that's how these conversations go. Again, it's what, for me at least, has made ETMOOC such a unique learning environment. Let's switch over to the second of the 3 prompts that we're going to do. Maurice, you're going to take the other side of what we've just been talking about.
Yeah, so here's the thing. I want to talk a bit about what challenges do you and those you serve face trying to incorporate ChatGPT into your work. Think about it. Does the echo chamber effect give you pause? Or the data is from what, 2021? Does that also give you pause? What say you? Or do you not care? And I could be totally wrong. That truly, it's I really would use it for not factual stuff, obviously, and really ChatGPT is really sort of the gateway AI. I mean, folks, you've been using AI in the background. Folks are, well, I've never used AI. It's like, if you've used any type of phone tree system or call center system, you've likely used AI a lot, but don't realize it. And that's really good technology. It exists in the background, helps you do something. You don't even realize you're using it at all. But ChatGPT is, it's kind of that, oh, it's the new hotness. It sounds different. Yes, Bing has its own AI engine. It sounds a little better, different than ChatGPT, but Bing's been around. Bing's also, a Microsoft product. So people are thinking it's a Microsoft product that comes with its own, 800-pound gorilla on its back. So what are some challenges to working with, we'll talk about ChatGPT in general, or AI in particular. What are some challenges to incorporating that stuff into your work?
I'll start. I think the potential is so great. And so I've started using ChatGPT every day. But what you notice when you use it is that there is so much to learn. So the challenge is accuracy. Some of the things that I've put in have been inaccurate. Some of the links that they send me are not accurate. And so you have to pay attention. You have to watch what you're doing. It has phenomenal potential. And if I was a good prompt engineer, which I'm not yet, I don't know if I ever will be, but if you're a good prompt engineer, you can come up with some amazing information, which you'll have to fact check and go over and see how you can implement it into your work. As a psychologist, is there ways to use it? I think so. But I am just learning how and why and what will I use it for. So it's a learning process for sure.
So Susan, you didn't think it was very intuitive, is that correct?
Well, I wouldn't say intuitive, just not accurate. It would give lots of data, lots of information. So even if you put a simple prompt into it, you can come up with lots of interesting data,
Right.
but it's not necessarily accurate.
Right. And by the way, did anyone have prompt creator on their 2023 new job bingo card? Anyone? Because this is a job. This is going to be a job for someone. Someone's going to say, oh, who is the X, Y, and Z technology places prompt generator? Not just for ChatGPT, but for other AI interfaces.
Do you think that'll be a standalone job though? Or will it be combined with other skills? Like, will it be the teacher that's good at prompt engineering or the engineer that's good at prompt engineering?
Maybe,
I don't know.
Bill, it depends on your use of it or your company's importance of that particular thing. Do you have someone who that's their job because they're so good at it, they can take anyone in a 400-person company. It's like, all right, I need to figure this thing out. All right, generate a prompt for this particular AI engine. to get me what I want. If I'm really good at it, you're not going to go through, say, like Susan's trial and error. Is it worth it to have someone who's really good at something do it?
Save even more time.
Yes.
No, Phil,
Now,
and there's an interesting sidelight to what you're talking about here. A couple of years ago, people were focusing on certain aspects of artificial intelligence and many other things. A big argument was all these jobs are going to disappear. There was a report that came out about 10 years ago predicting that anywhere from 30 to 60% of the jobs that currently existed might disappear. As with the short passage of time, we're realizing it's not that jobs are disappearing, parts of jobs are disappearing. So the idea of the prompt engineering thing, maybe now it is full-time for some people, but it could be just like desktop publishing for a while was a specialty item. Now most people are computer proficient, can lay out and produce a decent newsletter. So we keep learning. Go ahead, Maurice.
That's because the technology caught up with the need. There was a need there. I worked in graphic design back in the 1990s, early 1990s, and desktop publishing was an entire store. In New York, it was a store. It was a copy shop, and then it was 4 people at the store who did your desktop publishing. You gave them your drawing. Here's what I would like. You get a couple of days later, you got your thing. That was a job. That doesn't exist anymore because the technology is caught up with the need. I think this is going to be the same thing. We're going to look back on this course, when we have our reunion in 2033 and go, wow, we were thinking about it in the right way and maybe in the wrong way. But what has happened is a lot of the stuff becomes background noise. It becomes just part of the ecosystem. But what a big thing that's come up in chat is power consumption. How much power do these various things take up?
It's a bit off topic, Maurice, but you just said 10 years from now when we have our next 10-year anniversary for ETMOOC. And I've known you a long time. It takes a lot from you to blow my mind, but you have really just like blown whatever hair was left in my head off, and my shoes have gone flying thinking, wow, it will be 2023 when we do our next 10-year anniversary.
Yeah.
Who would have, I don't know, somehow, Alec, when you did the original ETMOOC and we were in 2013, I wasn't even thinking that 2023 would be the 10-year anniversary because none of us envisioned being together that long. But it is really something to think about how this community thrives and grows because of the kind of conversations we're having. Thanks, Maurice. I need to leave now.
No problem. Alex, back to the prompt engineer thing, it is a thing where prompt will get better, less of a need as AI gets better. It's like, sure, but you may need someone who's a specialist at it. You just can't get the right thing out of it. Or, for example, a lawyer who needs someone to write a case. If you get some sort of AI engine, I know there are law ones, I don't remember the names of them off the top of my head, but I took a law course in college recently, and doing all that reading made my head hurt. If I had something that could give me a summation of these 2 cases and their similarities, differences, and why this opinion was better than this in some sort of engine, I'd have been so happy as a study aid. It can help sort large amounts of data and help you really think about large amounts of data, which is a good thing.
So
it's like a good spreadsheet.
If I can add to that, like I think prompt engineering is absolutely really important right now, and you can see by the large pay that jobs are having. But I think there will be a shift, and Sam Altman, as I put in the text, agrees. But I think what's more important is subject area expertise to really use this very well. So you need the technical piece, but for instance, I think I shared this last week, but if you give a basic prompt like, let's see, a basic prompt like this, if you want to write a paragraph like this, or like if you write that into ChatGPT, what I put in the chat, that'll get you so far. But if you do something like this, I'll show you an example of incremental prompting. So you ask it a number of questions, and then you ask the same question at the end, you're going to get a much more sophisticated result. So the more you know about your subject area, the more nuanced you can get, the better input you'll get out eventually. And while you're asking multiple questions, you're training the AI to be better at what it's going to eventually give you. So a student saying, that first prompt, well, you get a very formulaic essay and very standard. But as you prompt it, you're basically teasing it, you're teaching it to go beyond the boundaries. You're poking at it to actually change something that or write something that's much less formulaic than the original intent. So I think you can't do that if you don't have subject knowledge expertise. And that's what's really important about this is the prompting will get easier over time. I think right now it's still fairly difficult to really get really good quality. But the one thing that will not change is the level of subject expertise you need to know to kind of tie things together. I think that's going to be a bigger thing that we have to continue to push on in our schools as many do.
So,
and I
for you
feel like
educational technologists out there, I'm a big proponent of subject matter experts. I'm a library person. So remember, your librarians are your friends in this case. They are, sort of Jane, Jack, Jill, John of all trades when it comes to subject matter experts. So a big shout out to librarians. Again, another place where information, knowledge, and retrieval and organization are going to be incredibly important. And Susan said the human factor is going to matter. Still, we still need some agency to help do this, some agency to help you get the right answer. Oh wait, that's what a librarian does, helps you get the right answer. There we go. I can tie anything to libraries, really. This is shooting fish in a barrel.
That's why I think real quickly, the prompt engineering job is prompt engineer and librarian. Like that's the one that's those things are tied together very closely.
So it's just another job skill librarians are going to have that they don't teach in library school. That's just it. Just something else they have to learn that isn't being taught in library school. I know this is primarily not a librarian audience, maybe, or some librarian adjacent, but there are lots of skills that aren't taught in library school, and this is going to be one of them. Is how to do a prompt.
I think that learning to do the prompt will also create better teachers, because in teaching any material, they'll be better at crafting questions for students. And if students are using ChatGPT and they have to learn how to do the prompts, they're going to learn how to express themselves in better ways, how to be more inquisitive when they're doing research. So Maurice, I don't think it's going to be 100% on your shoulders. Hopefully it'll be you, the director, and helping everybody learn how to question, and hopefully they'll take those skills and then pass them along.
For some of us who've been together quite a while now, and I'm thinking especially of Lisa and me, we've been having a conversation over a very long time about how our language doesn't really keep up with our reality. About 8 years ago, this started over a dinner with a bunch of us saying that the word librarian no longer described what librarians really do. And over the years, I've had the same conversation with Maurice and others, including many of my ETMOOC colleagues, saying the word teacher or the word trainer really doesn't capture it all. To me, a great trainer or a great teacher has to have librarian level research skills, and vice versa. I find that the journalists that I know, they need those same research skills. We have had this idea for so long that you can get a degree, you can specialize in something, and you're set. But we're finding that the more we can cross lines and get each other's skills, still having the unique thing that makes us what we are, the better off we are. With that in mind, let's have a short third prompt here and get some wisdom of the crowd going. What do you see yourself doing with ChatGPT in the next year or two if it continues to evolve in a positive way? Again, what is our roadmap? What are we going to do with ChatGPT in lifelong learning? Anybody? We're not going to do anything. Okay, end of session. No, just kidding.
I'll see it. Paul, I think using it as a sandbox is what people are using it for. How do I interface with this particular thing? There's so many AI things out there that people are. It's again the age of the internet back in the old dark 100 days of the internet, the early 90s, when it truly was. This is the Wild West. We are on there in the covered wagons of technology right now. We're in the covered wagons. We're on the Oregon Trail. Let's hope no one dies of dysentery. Well, we're out there on the covered wagons, and we are out there helping people find their way. We are slashing the trail. We try to make sure we make friends with the people who are already there, type thing. We want to realize that we are out there and to help others get there, help others get here. Lisa, you mentioned I did not someone not know about ChatGPT. That doesn't surprise me at all because it hasn't impacted their world. It's still a niche product, niche thing right now. Even though I was in a conference and everything was ChatGPT, every single session was ChatGPT, AI, ChatGPT, etc. We should, all of us in the educational technology community, do what we normally do. Use our skills to help others make sense of all this stuff. And that's what we need to do in the next year. Dive into it, help people make sense of it or not, figure out, is it worth learning or not, figure out how to best use it or not, and figure out if the system is ready for this type of possibly transformational change.
You notice that I almost lost it there when Maurice was talking about the Oregon Trail and said we have to hope nobody gets dysentery. The in-joke here is Maurice runs a wonderful podcast every couple of weeks that's primarily about training in libraries, but we often go far afield. And one of the traditions of the show is we always look for that one comment made during the production of that podcast that captures the whole theme. If this were teased for training tonight, this particular episode would be called "Let's Hope Nobody Gets Dysentery." There are a couple of chat comments coming in response to the challenges we face and what we're going to be doing. We've got one of the directors. I'm sorry, it's here, and I think we all need to pay attention to it and use it. Dive in for sure. Other people, let's get a few more ideas out there. What are you seeing that you're excited about, and what are you going to do to use it? This is us as a community setting a roadmap that's going to change many times, but at least we get the initial ground paving in place while hoping nobody gets dysentery. Lisa's saying I use
I'm
AI.
actually going to call out Lisa. You wrote a while ago in chat about the different ways you have used AI, etc. And you put up a link to a blog post that I hope someone has caught and will put into the Discord and into all the notes.
I put it there.
Okay. So really, so how are you using it? And you say you've used it to, I quickly flipped over to your blog post. Of all the different ways you're using it, what are some things that you see for us to help other people to use not just ChatGPT in specific, but AI in general to make their lives better, easier, and less cumbersome?
So I think an interesting question is, when wouldn't you use AI? And
Okay.
so what I've found very fun at work, and I do ed tech for New York City Public Schools. I'm the executive director of technology there. Anything that we do for the past few months, people are talking and I just pop it into AI, and while they're talking, I just share like, okay, it's already done. And of course, as people have said, it's not the exact thing because we have a bunch of people there that are collaborating, but we no longer have a blank page and we're already like on track with something. So some examples of that, we were doing a government technology award nomination for some of the work that we've done. And people were talking about, what we should do with the award, et cetera, et cetera. I got the award application. I got the web page that tells about the work we did. I put it into ChatGPT. And while they were talking over the course of a few minutes, I said, here's the nomination in a Google Doc. If anyone wants to edit it, go ahead. But they had predicted it would take a week to write the nomination. It was basically already done. So, and they were just blown away because I have to say, I also run something, it's the large districts of the United States, the like largest 8 school districts or something. And I put this in the chat too, the ed tech directors, and most of them have not used it for their work.
Yep.
Some with pride. And I said, our job takes like a 40-hour job now takes 20 hours a week. Why would you want to spend all that extra time when we could do whatever, other things we want with it. So I just, I guess I don't see anything that I do where it can't be incredibly useful, whether it's I have an email and I say make it more convincing or make it more concise. We are creating digital citizenship agenda for 8th grade student government students that we're working with on digital footprint. And while we're talking about it, I asked AI to create the agenda and using resources from Common Sense Education, and it did it in 20 seconds. And the conversation with us was like, okay, now let's just revise the agenda. And it can, I mean, people are saying, some people say it's not quality. I found it to be extremely high quality.
Okay.
There's a
quick
follow-up
follow-up.
question for you from Daniel in the chat. Are you reaching the kids in high school or high poverty areas of New York City with that ed tech?
I mean, most of our students are high poverty. So wait, I didn't look at the question, but are we reaching kids in high poverty? Oh, I mean, yeah, New York City is mostly high poverty. What's exciting is through the pandemic, we finally went one-to-one and provided internet to our students, which shouldn't have required a pandemic. But yes, we are doing that.
As we head toward a wrap, let's take one more question. I see Shay's hand is up. Shay, go ahead.
Thank you. Allow me a soapbox for a minute. I won't take too long. So my experience, my PhD is about technology adoption in work integrated learnings. I've been looking at this for a little bit, and I'm hoping I finish in the next 2 years, hopefully on time. When I interview people, I'm looking at the practitioner space, and the thought that comes to mind sitting here is we're already the converted. We are here in this MOOC because we want to know more. There's a certain level of comfort that technology is coming, whether it's coming for our jobs, whether it's coming for our creativity, critical thinking, our lives, who knows, it's coming. You can either adopt it, you can either try to get ahead of the curve, or you can put your head in the sand and pretend there's nothing happening, and then one day realize, oh, guess what? I'm not even on planet Earth anymore. I'm being dramatic, I understand. You asked about challenges, and my experience suggests that it's a very deep psychological challenge in addition to just the technological pieces. AI is traditionally considered STEM, science, engineering. The minute you mention AI to somebody from the arts field, it's almost like a switch turns off and I won't get it. It's not for me, I won't get it. Fear about job loss. If I adopt it, tomorrow I might not be getting a paycheck. So in addition to just making people comfortable with the idea of technology being in their lives is probably step 3. We need to bring people along the curve, along the familiarity curve. And I think that will be a bigger challenge. Once people are in this room, it's fun and games, but how do you get them into the room? I'm done. I'll shut up.
Oh, please don't. All right, so the obvious question at this point as we reach the end of live session 1 here tonight is, where do we go next? We are trying as a team here to put together the easiest to navigate MOOC in the whole world. We've all been through courses where you can't find anything. So Susan, Valerie, and a few other people have been putting together what we hope is an easily navigable website. When you go there, you'll see a tab for orientation. If you're thinking about communicating with us in Discord, you don't know what that is, go to the orientation page. There is a link to something that explains it and a video that goes there. If you're wondering about the sessions we've got, you'll see that there's a whole tab for sessions. And our intention is at the beginning of each 2-week cycle, we will have a kind of a lesson in a box that gives you an overview and a bunch of resources. Remember, the key here is ETMOOC as a connectivist MOOC is a guilt-free zone. You do as little or as much as you want, and that's success. We are not giving grades. We are not saying, oh, this person got a star because they read 10 books and this person only read 2. So as you go there, especially in the week one thing that we just put up this morning, you'll see that there is the mention of tonight's session, and it will be archived. The recording will be up as quickly as we can process that. So if you're part of this group and you weren't here tonight, it's there for you to go to, and it'll be up there as long as we can keep stuff up on the internet. We've got a series of exercises up there. You can do something as simple as read a short piece that explains what ChatGPT is. On the extreme opposite side, as you go down the list, progressively more complex, detailed pieces, you go all the way down to a piece that only your mother would want to read if she's a ChatGPT expert and wants to go one more step. But that's there for you. Choose as little or as much as you want. If you want to get what most of us have gotten out of the original ETMOOC, interact with people at your own level. Go onto Discord, make comments, respond to people's comments. If there's something that really appealed to you tonight and you want to work with it, write a short post, put it on Facebook or Twitter or wherever you want it. And if it's a blog piece, link it into Discord for the week one channel. You'll notice in Discord, there's week by week channels for stuff, and it's clearly labeled session/module 1, session/module 2. So the big revelation here, if you're new to this, is you could come tonight and that's it, and come back in a couple of weeks. If you want to discuss more, Susan and I have set up a drop-in at this same time next Tuesday. So the intent is every other week, a new presentation like this. Alternate weeks, at least for the first 2 modules, we'll have drop-ins on the nights when we're not doing formal presentations. We'll be monitoring Discord and watching wherever else we go. But again, as Alec taught us in ETMOOC 1, there is no trying to keep up and there is no falling behind. If you like Twitter as your communication tag, go out there and use hashtag #ETMOOC2 so other people can find your conversation and talk there. Go to Discord, go to Facebook. So I think that pretty much beats that horse into the ground. And there's a series of resources that are specific to this session that are in there for you to read as much or a little as you want also. Susan and Alec, what am I forgetting to say in terms of what we want people to know so they're comfortable and they want to come back next week?
Well, it's on Wednesday next week. Mark Wednesdays unless you're in another part of the world, which is okay. And that's the great thing. If you're in another part of the world, you can watch the videos. But being in Discord is going to give you that voice. Some of you have great questions, specific questions that you want to ask someone else who may be a post-secondary educator and is in your field. And so you can get that answer specifically with them. The highest number of people in our MOOC are post-secondary educators. The second highest are people who are not teachers, not educators, not counselors. They're other people. So whether they're an IT or a librarian or just a person who's interested in AI, we want to give them a voice too. And the best way to do that is to go into Discord and start sharing and asking questions, because that way you'll connect with someone. This is a connectivist MOOC. We're really happy that you're here, but the best way to do that really is in Discord, because you can do that anytime, any hour, wherever you are in the world.
Alec, anything you want to add?
No, you both covered it very well. So yeah, thanks so much.
Let's circle back to my co-conspirators tonight. Lisa, any final comments you want to make or words of encouragement to people who want to go further with this?
Just dive right in.
Thank you. Maurice?
Don't stop and keep connecting with people. This is a fantastic group that this came from. The seed was fantastic, the original ETMOOC, and we can create our own wonderful garden from that seed. Let's do that in the next few weeks.
Thank you so much. We will, as soon as I finish these sentences, cut the recording. Those of you that want to stay for informal post-session chat, will stay almost as long as you're willing to stay. Last week we went for about a half hour, but I think that pretty much concludes this. And thank you for being part of this. It's so exciting to have a group of people like this who want to explore something so meaningful and so obviously full of potential as well as full of challenges. So I hope you have a wonderful morning, evening, or afternoon, wherever you're at. We will see you again as soon as we can see you. Thanks so much.